Wow, we are live. Well, that was interesting. Good morning, Ashyan, if you're still here. If you're not, I couldn't really blame you since I am 5 minutes late because I literally spent several minutes sitting here waiting for the connection to YouTube from OBS to actually show me a preview and allow me to go live, which has pretty much never happened before, so not totally shocking that things that worked perfectly well, sometimes for years, all of a sudden stop working. It's not the most unusual thing ever when it comes to Windows. But anyway, here we are. When we last left off, which I think would have been Friday, we knocked out this shot. And if you look at the preview here, you look at his arms look a little small. It's like they look fine here, but they look wrong here. So step one today really was to go ahead and fix Gulick. So that's pretty much done. I just grabbed his arms and resized them a little bit. So with that said, we will re-render the shot. And now if we jump over here and look at the preview, right up here, you're probably going to notice, oh, his arms just changed size. So, okay, that's definitely better. So, okay, so now we can move on. And the next shot we're working on today is going to be this one. And so, let's see here. I think I'll make my life simple by actually repurposing this shot. I'm going to get rid of the lip sync and the shadows just so I can use the palette from this shot. And this is such a this background painting is such a big vista that we could probably actually use a completely different piece of it on a different angle for the next shot. So it'll probably be a little more defocused. And so with that, what I'm going to do is just make a few quick changes. This is going to be scene number 598. Our output settings will be to render to...
we're going to render to 598, not 597. Oh, you silly goose. That's better.
Alright. We're not going to render it, but we're going to file, save as. Wakey wakey, Tahoma. And by the way, we're on the wrong... good morning, Dominic Joquel. Hello. Hello, hello, hello. Okay, so this is actually going to be 598. So let's do shot number 598. So, Dominic, you are new. I don't think I remember. If you've been around, you've been lurking. So we haven't actually been aware of your presence. Okay, the next step, just due diligence here, is to go to the scene cast window and remove all unused levels. That just cleans up the TNZ file so that we can save it and everything's going to be clean and fresh and correct. Okay, so now this next step for this particular shot is I think I'm going to turn my background image off just so it's not distracting me and I'm not being flubbed up by the angle of the drawing because it's completely wrong for this shot that I'm about to do. So what I'm going to do is hit the B key and go boop. Okay, so now we've created a new smart raster level, and then what I'm going to do is grab these colors here, Control C, and just paste them into this level. So I'm stealing the palette, and now this shot is effectively not any use to us either. We just needed it for the... Ryu says, my work is amazing. Wow, you know, that's a... you know what? All I can say is I hope that the entire rest of the planet agrees with you because I think my work is, in fact, you know, when I go back and I look at it, I go, you know, I am feeling pretty good about the work I've done lately, especially, and I think on balance, it's okay. You know, it's pretty good. It's not horrible, but at the same time, golly, um, every day I'm learning. You know, every day I'm improving. One of the biggest things I've been learning, I talk oftentimes on this live stream about certain life lessons, and the biggie has to do with just slowing down, basically. Just slowing down. I think what I'll do here, there's a couple angles from which I could approach this. I think I'll go ahead and delete that level. There's really no point keeping it around since I've already stolen the palette. So what I'm thinking here is whether we want to do a pencil test. So what I could do, what I'm debating right now is I really do wish it was a little nicer to do a sketch in Tahoma and actually ink it on the same level, but there's reasons I have gotten into many times in the past, so I won't bother now. But there's reasons why that becomes a little problematic. So what I'm going to do is go ahead and put the pencil test on a different level. And just for fun, let's use our wonderful charcoal brush. So the idea of the charcoal brush is that, let's hit the N key. So this is the actual size of the frames that we're creating, right? Okay. So when you move the stylus slowly or softly, I should say, it's kind of a broad, like brushed pencil effect. But then if you push a little harder, it actually gets thinner, which is kind of unusual, but it's really good for sketching. So that's what we'll do. We'll do some sketching. There goes Valerie in the background. Hey, baby. Okay, so now I'm looking at my storyboard. Basically, here's what we have. We're kind of looking up at him this way. And I'm going to just put his hand right here. I'm going to just put an indication of where his hand would be. And then, as I like to say, working from the known to the unknown, I know where his shoulders are going to be. Basically, I know where his chin's going to be. I know where the top of his hat's going to be. And this is the way it usually goes, is there's stuff you know where you want to put it, and as you get those things blocked in, it kind of reveals the things that you weren't so sure of. So I'm going to go ahead and put in an indication of Golik's evil, sneering goatee, which I guess I have an evil, sneering goatee myself, so I shouldn't probably diss on the goatee too much. And now I'm flipping the canvas for the obvious reason of being able to kind of see what the heck I'm doing and make sure. That was typical. Okay, so OBS just disconnected and reconnected, and as usual, it took about 250 frames for it to reconnect. So that means that if you ever see me freeze on the screen, I'm usually going to be frozen for about 10 seconds. Sometimes it happens a lot. Sometimes it doesn't happen as much. So here's hoping that today it won't happen too much. Okay. Where did I go to animation school? I didn't. Animation school? What are you talking about, man? Why would anyone ever want to go to animation school if they can just, like, get on YouTube and learn learn from guys like me, right? I'm kidding. Nope, no animation school. I just, as I've told the story here many times, I've always been a cartoonist, and pretty much everything else, everything that is involved in creating a cartoon, I've done before many times because I've written and directed. Reconnected again. Hey, Nitesh Yadaw. Hope I said that right. No, not really art school. My degree in college actually was in telecommunication, and the reason for that was that my goal at the time was to work in recording studios, because back in the 1980s, recording studios were a thing, actually, and that was what I wanted to do. I wanted to produce musical, like radio jingles, you know, that type of thing. So if you search my YouTube channel, I think there's a there's actually a playlist that I think is public called Dave's Musical Performances that has a good smattering of different music I've produced over the years. But that was kind of I've joked many times that I got into filmmaking because I wanted to score films. So I'm like, well, I want to score a film. Well, maybe I should write it and direct it and create the movie first, and then I'll be able to score it, right? So you can't take these things too seriously. That literally is the truth. That's what happened. And after, if I remember this sequence correctly, and this would have been around 2010, 11, somewhere in there, after making a few very, very bad movies, one of which, by the way, had a very cool score, for what that's worth. I finally created a movie that actually was kind of successful, and that was basically a chick flick horse movie. So, and as I say, you can find that movie here on YouTube, as a matter of fact. So if anybody's curious, and by the way, I should actually mention, just a short time ago, one of my movies that I actually would consider to be one of my 3 best movies that I ever created, is not really in distribution at this point, even though the other 2 are. But the third one is called Clerical Errors, and if you look here on my YouTube channel, I actually made it public just recently, and it has very few views, but it's an interesting study. I've thought about actually creating a second YouTube channel about budget filmmaking, because every film I ever made, and the last one included Sean Young, who's a pretty well-known Hollywood actress, but all the films I made were made for a total budget of about $8,000 US dollars. Which is obscene. I mean, and I've routinely had people in the distribution community look at my films and go, "Yeah, that must have cost like, a couple $100,000, $250,000, that type of thing." I'm going, "No, actually, it cost $8,000," and they can't believe it. They're like, "No, that didn't happen. There's no way." Yeah, actually, there is. And so I learned, I pretty much out of necessity. You ask about animation school, Dominic. No, you're wrong, sir. The films I made, you just break it down. Okay, so let's look at the difference between a movie and a cartoon. Okay, because there's a big labor difference between a movie and a cartoon. But basically, the timeline of a movie is basically about 6 months. Okay, you say it takes a lot of time. Well, let's do the math. I mean, I admit I am a fast writer, as writers go. I can write a screenplay at a pace of about 5 pages an hour, or about 15 pages a day. So I would do very well writing television, just because I am fast. And if you think I'm talking crap, just look up this movie just look up that movie here on YouTube, and you can watch it. And then ask yourself, did this movie actually get made for $8,000? And did this guy write it, write all the music, acted in it, because I had a fairly major role, plus paid Sean Young to come in and do 4 scenes. So the question, now the truth of the matter is I took that, but the thing is, Dominic, there's no difference between live action movies and animation, except the animation. Everything else about it is the same. You have to write the script. Hey, Claude. You have to write the script. You have to create the assets, if you will, which, of course, with animation means you got to draw this stuff and animate it. I got a little issue here with his body. I think I kind of did a bad job here. So I'm going to flip that over. I may actually erase this, because I think I'm going to erase this and redo it. It doesn't, I'm going to redo a lot of it. It doesn't quite feel right. And you know what? If it doesn't feel right, just freaking redo it. We're all here just having fun anyway, right? So I'm talking about filmmaking because literally everything about making a film is no different than making a cartoon except the animation process. So your question, what seems to be blocked? Oh, the movie? Um, well, the one I mentioned that's on my YouTube channel called Clerical Errors, that one you probably can watch. I don't know why it'd be blocked, but I could see that's a possibility with my distributor Bridgestone Multimedia. There may be some limitations on what's visible through their YouTube channel. They have a YouTube channel called, I think it's called Encourage TV or something like that, and they yeah, there may be some international limits in terms of what's available where. So sorry about that. But you could also see them on Tubi, see Tubi. That platform, if you can get that in your country, then you could watch it there as well. So anyway, yeah, I never went to animation or really art school, although I did take a few art classes in college. I was really into the music thing, actually. That was what I wanted to do. So let me just kind of block in his expression. I kind of like that fuzzy charcoal look because it sort of makes it easier to sort of feel the character sneaking out from behind the page. So I don't think you. I guess you know, just since we're just talking about this stuff, I'll stay kind of with Dominic's point and or question having to do with animation, and my sense of it is that I make a really big distinction between animation and drawing. Okay, so my approach to animation is probably a little more focused on the drawing, especially these days, than the movement. And so there's a whole art to movement, you know, and timing, which for this particular project, I de-emphasize that because it is essentially an anime, you know, stylistically and everything. And it's just to me, that's the aesthetic of anime. You're sort of more about the imagery than the movement, even though there is obviously a lot of movement in many animes, right? So this feels better. I'm gonna hit the end key. Yeah, that's feeling better. So his hand. Again, I'm gonna say this again. If it's not quite right, just redo it. Just have fun seeing if you can do a little bit better job the second time, you know? I think that's probably a good way to look at it. This is a lesson that's been coming up in life over and over for me. I see it in... Okay, let me look at Sifter's comment. And I'm aware that we just disconnected. I stopped talking, so you guys didn't really quite miss anything. Interesting difference between animatic for 2D animation and live action movie. The former would be best if it's near polish level. Okay, animatic. Because the animators could just take it and in between it to speed up the workflow. Okay, that's true, and that's kind of what I was talking about with an anime approach to animation. In other words, here, especially if we look at the last shot we did, because remember when I did this shot, if you guys were here, I said, hey, I'm going to approach this I'm going to do the Ed Tadeo method, which he does here on YouTube with Krita, that was more focusing on frame-by-frame animation, really focusing on the drawings. And honestly, that approach didn't sustain itself very far because the final drawing in the sequence I wound up deleting because I actually thought it harmed the storytelling. It made the storytelling worse by having more movement. Clash Tunes, my tablet is a XP Pen Digital Artist 15.6. It's about 3 years old now, I would say. I think it cost about $350 US when I bought it. I have no idea what you could probably get it on eBay for a couple $100 now, I would think. So with this shot, this is what I'm saying. This entire shot if you want to know the dirty little filthy truth about it, the truth is I could have drawn just this drawing right here and animated it like this or something, and it would have worked just fine. Now, if you're an animation purist and you're really studying the fundamentals of movement and timing and all that, you're not going to like what I'm saying, because my focus is if we go back over here, you got to realize my focus is on this. This is a 24-minute episode. My focus is on the storytelling. And if the storytelling's working, then I'm not necessarily fixated on movement as an end unto itself. Of course, there's sequences in the show where there's a lot of animation, right? But the focus is on the storytelling, right? So, but that's just me, and it's not only just me, but it's also this project. There are other things I could, I wrote the fan Futurama episode that Darren T talks about on his channel sometimes, and he's done some really nice knockoff Futurama animation based on, well, not really based on the script I wrote, because we haven't really gotten that far as far as actually producing the thing. But, the approach to a show like that might be really different, than the approach to this show. I guess at the end of the day, I don't really care. I just, let's just kind of like figure out what works or is the appropriate approach for the project at hand, and then, let's do that and try to do it well. The life lesson I mentioned earlier that I said keeps coming up over and over again is basically this. The fast way is the slow way, and the slow way is the fast way. I find this to be true across the board, to where I know it sounds weird and almost esoteric and a bit strange, like, what the hell are you talking about, sir? Literally, when I walk through my house, I tone down, and it's a really important principle that's hard to believe and or choose to adopt if you're young, especially if you're young, and even more especially if you don't know where you're at in life, like you haven't got your life situation, your money situation sort of figured out, to where maybe you're struggling in some ways. It's going to be a lot harder to take that that longer term view. Why? Because you're anxious, right? Life makes you anxious because there's uncertainty, right? And this is normal. This is normal for people, especially I would say young people, but in many places it's normal for the entire culture, and it's really sad. Super sad. Where can I watch your cartoons? Okay, so Clash Toons. And by the way, thanks for being here. I think Clash Toons, I'm pretty sure I've looked at your YouTube channel before. It's been a while, and I seem to remember seeing some pretty cool stuff there. But I don't really, basically the only place you can watch my cartoons would be here on my YouTube channel, because this cartoon has not been released yet. Okay, so I guess I'll talk about that now. We've got 6 concurrent viewers, which isn't a ton. Yeah, Sifter's right. I've heard good things about Huion and XP Pen. I use XP Pen. I've got 2 of them. I've got 2 of the same model, actually. It's the Digital Artist 15.6. Now, if you want a 12-inch, not a 15.6-inch, then it's been an extremely good driver, and a great tablet to use. I like it. I like the size of it. 15.6 seems about right to me. So this is what we're talking about. This is the tablet. XP Pen Digital Artist 15.6. Nothing special. You can get them all day long on Amazon or whatever. So, okay. So it seems to me there's something about this that I'm still not liking. And I'm going to take my time. And I think maybe this would be part of it. I kind of want to feel like I'm looking up more. So I'm going to make his collar overlap his face just a little bit more. Okay, so basically think of it this way, getting back to hey Tom, hey Maria, I didn't realize you guys were here. getting back to, I think it was Dominic's question. Actually, before I get to that, let me mention the whole crowdfunding thing because I've mentioned it several times on the channel, and we're getting close to the point where it's going to be real. I think it's going to launch basically 1st of August, more or less. I'm recoalescing with my distributor this week to look at how they can help support it, but it's going to be an Indiegogo campaign. I've already created the pitch video, so a good bit of the work's done, although I need to add closed captions to it. So at this point, there's just kind of some grunt work to do to sort of get the campaign ready to launch. And then I'll let you guys know, and I'm not asking you guys for money. I mean, of course, if you want to contribute and support me in this, you can, thank you. But if there's something you can do to maybe just kind of get the word out when the time comes, that would be greatly appreciated. So, but that's the story. It's going to probably be a 60-day campaign on Indiegogo, and I'm going to do it the least risk-free way, which is it's going to be an open-ended campaign that never ends, and it's not going to be like Kickstarter where if we don't reach a certain goal, all the money gets given back. It's not going to be like that. It's going to be like if people give, then I'm going to very thankfully put that in the bank, and that's helping to pay my way so I can just keep doing what I'm doing for as much as 4 years. Because at this point, this project is projected to be a 4-year project and 12 episodes, right? So what we have right now is 2 episodes that are mostly animated, and so okay, so Cintiq still king. Yeah, I mean that's going to be debatable. I think that I actually probably disagree because the main difference between other brands previously I think had mostly to do with the drivers and how it was kind of like a reliability thing, and I just think we're way past that. By the way, everything here is too big. This is a good filmmaking principle for you folks. When in doubt, frame everything a little bit smaller than you think in the frame. And I think also in this case, I'm looking at the rule of thirds line. I guess I'll put his eye on the line. And then the question is, are we going to center him or not? And I think what I'll do is anchor his shoulder and kind of the corner of the hat on the cross of the rule of thirds. And I think that will work because we're going to have a silhouette here. Okay, so this would be a silhouette of Vespigi in the background. Okay, so now as I'm getting him in there, it's helping me to see. I actually think that what I want to do, I'm probably going to use the plastic tool. So what's really going to happen here in this shot is something like this. Let me just put this anchor point here so I can animate it in real time. So what's going to happen is that the shot will begin, and then Golik will go like this. He'll lean back, and then his hand will kind of do this kind of thing. I'll probably draw 2 poses though, because moving it laterally doesn't quite work. But that would be the idea there. Oh, hey Ed, welcome to the party today. Okay, so I don't know if you were here on Friday. I think it was, Ed, but I told everybody I'm gonna do the Ed Tadeo method and do this shot with frame by frame animation, and it didn't quite work. I'm just not as good at it as you are, I think, because at the end of the day, I love this part, and this part wasn't quite working, and actually there was a drawing at the end of the sequence that I wound up deleting, so there you go. So anyway, but yeah, if anybody gets the impression that I'm an Ed Tadeo fanboy, you're right, guys. Anybody here who's not subscribed to Ed's channel definitely should be, because he is probably the guy, actually, I would say, on YouTube that I've ever been able to find that's doing really good, credible animation, pretty much exclusively with Krita. So, and I've used Krita on lots of stuff here on this channel too, but in recent months I've been pretty much anchored to Tahoma2D and OpenToonz. So, anyway, that's that. So, I'm not loving that right there. So what I'm going to do is move my anchor point down here so that I can kind of just, yes, I like that. I feel like I'm wanting him to just, he'll already be in motion, basically. Okay, so Clash Tunes, Ed today, oh, me slow working, though. Are you saying you, yeah, me slow working, though? Are you meaning that you're on the slow side with your animation and whatnot? Um, because I won't disagree. I mean, from what I've seen, you definitely take your time, and the results turn out. You know, it's worth it, right? But yeah, I mean, I don't think. I think in my work here, I've emphasized speed too much. Actually, that's kind of what I was talking about a little bit today. This is better. This is better, by the way. I'm thinking I want his hand to be more like this, and then I'm gonna have to do this. Probably do it with the fingers. Yeah. Okay. Yeah. So and there's nothing wrong with being slow. I mean, at the end of the day, it's put it this way: if you did the work in 1/10 the time, but it sucked, how would that be useful to anybody, right? So I've been remiss here on my channel in emphasizing speed too much because it is true. It doesn't matter how fast you are. It's like me talking about filmmaking. What I was answering Dominic's question. For making feature films, I can tell you that yeah, but the problem, Ed. Okay, let me answer Ed's not question but statement here. I agree with you. I like the idea, and frankly, if I was going for a if I'm going for a Glenn Keane pencil test of The Little Mermaid, or Beauty and the Beast kind of thing, where you want that sketchy, loose feeling, I would completely agree with you. That's a really cool look, and if you're doing a frame by frame animation approach where it's all about the drawing, it's like the Disney style approach, then I agree with you. This is really cool because with the charcoal brush, you can kind of get that really loose thing happening, but then by pressing a little harder, you can tighten it in, and truthfully, you could almost use that as your ink. But having said that, it's good for sketching. It's not really appropriate for the final look of this show. This show is clearly going for more of a tight anime type approach where we have fairly bold lines and not a lot of nuance, I would say, in the outlines. So, and I mean, I would say the stuff you do in Krita tends to be that way too. Once you do your ink and paint, it tends to be pretty tight. Let's call it tight. Okay, so we're pretty much ready to ink here. So what I'm going to do is just turn this level down, and then as those who were here at the beginning, what I did was, you know what, Clash Tunes, if the best I can give you at the moment is just when you go to my YouTube channel, here, the intro video, which is basically the intro to the show, that is, obviously it's a montage kind of thing with the music behind it, and also it's not quite as cool maybe as their OBS reconnected. Sorry about that. You typically get about a 10-second delay when OBS acts stupid. So right now, about the only thing you're going to be able to see is going to be the intro video. Okay, so I would expect in 2 weeks I'll be launching this Indiegogo campaign after I reconvene with my distributor and talk about how they're going to what they might be able to do, especially on the social media side, to help promote it. And then there's going to be about 2 months of sort of letting anybody and everybody know that this is kind of out there, and any support you guys can give, believe me, I appreciate it, because my whole goal is to, and if you look at what the campaign's asking for, at the end of the day, it's a lot of money. I mean, the ultimate goal would be in the $750,000 range, but that's because we're talking about multiple years of of production. What it actually is going to be is a per budget episode of $36,000. Now, if you think about taking that and you say, well, okay, if I'm working all by myself, let's just do the numbers here. This kind of gets back to Dominic's thing about filmmaking. If you just run the numbers and you say, well, okay, if you can do 2 episodes a year, let's say, which is probably about right. You know, I'm going to try to accelerate the pace faster than that, but then you're talking about a budget of $72,000, which is by Hollywood terms is minuscule. It's nothing to create a 24-minute cartoon episode that everything you find on the internet's going to tell you that should cost $1 million. You know, it's ridiculous. Okay, and I know it's ridiculous because, as I said, I'm the guy who made a feature film for $8,000, one of which made literally $1 million at retail. I mean, it can be done. It probably wouldn't work today for reasons I won't bore you with at the moment, but you know, it's a matter of creating the right product for the right market at the right time, you know, and those things are hard to predict. But anyway, getting back to the budget situation, you're basically saying, okay, what I'm going to do is I want to just put my head down and just do the work, man. All I want to do is, I don't want to have to be worrying about the money thing. I just want to do the work, right? Do the best job I can for you guys and for anybody else that's going to ultimately enjoy the show. That's what we're trying to accomplish, is just to solve that problem. So we can focus and then create the entire 12-episode arc, you know. I'm liking the way that's looking. I'm liking that. Okay, so let's go whoop like that, and then we'll just connect the dots. I did it that way so I could do it really kind of loose. Now the problem we actually have here is that unfortunately there's a little lip on his hat. So let's do it this way. Let's just go like this and go Control C, Control V, and then pop it out like that. All right, and then what I'm going to do is hit Control and then just stretch that over like that. So that at least got me most of the way there, and now I can just use the brush to finish it up. So that's way easier than trying to draw the same, a little bit more careful. Because I've had many situations where I've been able to brag that I got this or that shot done really fast, and then I go and I look at it and go, well, yeah, but my character doesn't quite look like himself or whatever, you know. That's pretty stupid. So, well, the mid-sifter, good question. The answer is that it's just convention. I mean, conventionally, half-hour TV shows and especially anime cartoons are, 24 minutes is just kind of a standard length. It does depend, of course, on the platform and the number of commercials they're showing and things like that. But basically, it's just because that's just a standard length for how you write and produce a cartoon typically. That's the only reason for. So actually, the first episode, when I originally talked to my distributor about it, he suggested, well, why don't you do like a double length pilot? And I'm like, that's a cool idea. And the further I got into it, the more I realized I like the idea, and so it is true that the first 2 episodes basically function as one 48-minute long episode. Okay? And that's why I'm doing them in tandem, because I actually want to release episodes 1 and 2, if not together, certainly really close, not very much time in between them, because it really is a cliffhanger situation where you're leaving the audience hanging at the end of episode 1, no question about it. And I don't. The end of episode 2 is a little different. There's still a sense that the story continues, but the actual setup of the whole series is complete, right? It sort of has a respectable ending point, and actually the ending point, basically what happens is these kids that are really, in some ways clashing with one another. They're not necessarily, don't really love each other, but they've been forced into this situation where they have to decide what do we do? You know, where do we go from here? And they decide as a group that the best available option is to throw in together. And then I love the fact that right at the end of the episode, this is the last thing you see at the end of episode 2, is Prince Vespar finds the medallion and he knows that they were there, right? And so now you know that the chase is going to continue and it's just going to propel you into the next episode, right? So it's a lot of fun. I mean, I get pretty stoked about it because I love the story. I really like the story. I like the characters. They're so different, especially Mel and Tianara, because they don't like each other. I mean, if you look at this episode, the first time, it's not the first time he's ever seen her, but it's certainly the first time they've met in person. Well, what happens the first time they meet in person? I'll show you. This is what happens. She's got a knife at his throat saying, "You didn't see me," you know, and keep your mouth shut kind of thing. He's like, yeah, no problem, right? That's not the exact dialogue, but that's the gist of it. So I don't mind showing this here because you guys, you know, I don't think we're giving anything. Actually, let's see if I can. Yes, let's give him a little bit stubbier, fatter fingers. Okay, and in this case, I don't normally do this because the scale doesn't really call for it, but I think in this case I'm going to kind of put in some of those little details that I normally would not. Just 'cause. Okay, so obviously you got a little problem here with the contour of the hand. Looks pretty crappy, actually. Boink. Okay, so there we go. Not too shabby. Now I better hit the N key and look at scale and make sure I didn't like foul up the scale, because I've done that plenty of times too. So, okay, so I'm going to take half a second here and look at the comments. Ultimately, the most important thing in creating something is something you've invested yourself in. Well, I've certainly done that. If that's the case, somewhere there's an audience that will feel the resonance. I think you're right. I do think that is true. Does somebody use OpenToonz 1.5 notice weird behavior from the smooth function in the brush settings? I was just actually messing around with the flat pack of OpenToonz 1.5 on Linux on my laptop earlier today, and I don't remember if I ever used the smooth function, so I can't speak necessarily. I think the important thing about Maria's point is this, and this is what I was kind of saying about taking life a little slower. The reality is that you don't know and you can't know in advance what is going to turn out later in history, you know, in hindsight, to have been like really cool or valuable or whatever. And when I look at, I tend to like looking at interviews with luminary creative people. Like I've enjoyed the Archive of American Television. I really like, because they do these interviews with people that are sometimes older than dirt, and it's awesome that they were able to get interviews with them before they passed away, frankly. So the interviews with Mike Post, who has scored more television than anyone in history. The interviews with Stephen J. Cannell, I've talked about here a little bit before. I love the way it gets you in the heads of these people that, and what you see over and over is at the time they were doing it, they didn't have any idea what the significance would be. They didn't know it was going to be looked back at as being this television show that was, you know, maybe later people are going to look back at it and go, oh, yeah, that was such a great, you know, so creative, you know, so influential, so cool. You can't predict that, and you'd be stupid to try. It's not what it's about, right? It's about, are you in the moment doing the work because you love doing the work? And if you're kind of like what Maria's saying, I mean, I think if you're, I don't like the word passionate necessarily, but if you're really committed to doing the best job you can, I tend to think eventually your thing will find its audience. I mean, I certainly think that's been true in the filmmaking world. Basically, if it's good, you'll do okay. You know, you will find an audience and you will make some money, actually, if it's good. If it's truly not good, or I should say, let's reverse that. If it doesn't find an audience, if it really does poorly, it's usually because it sucks. And it might suck for just one reason. There might be one thing that's wrong with it that kind of wrecks the whole thing, unfortunately. That can happen. The scariest thing about creating a cartoon is that this is the first cartoon I've created, which means thanks Dominic, I appreciate that, by the way, and Rohit, I'm not sure what you're saying thank you for, but if you're saying thank you to me, then you're welcome. So the challenging thing is that usually it's really unusual to like really knock it out of the park on your first try. If you guys are not Americans, you might not know the baseball term, but the idea is hitting a home run, or in other words, having a big success on your first attempt is quite unusual. So that's the probably the most nerve-wracking thing about creating a cartoon, is that it might take multiple tries to really get good at it. I'm kind of banking on the idea that my experience making films, you know, the only thing that this adds to filmmaking basically is what I'm doing right now. You know, actually creating the cartoon part of it. Other than that, it's about the same. You know, you write a script, you do the production, you edit it. I mean, I know I'm a good editor. I know I'm good at writing music, and you know, the score will turn out fine. If you want to know about my score writing, you know, capabilities, just look at the show intro that's on my YouTube channel, because I mean, that music, you know, that music was written in like an hour. And I loved it. It was a lot of fun, and I think it came out pretty good. So, what do we got here? Well, we got our shadows in there. I think we're in good shape. So he's gonna lean back vis-a-vis the plastic tool, so that means that and by the way, I'm actually thinking I probably should have this be a little bit in shadow. Okay, so good. So now he's going to lean back, and then there will be a brief pause. So let's just go to frame 10, and then what I'm going to do is make a dupe, D key for a duplicate. And what I need to do here is see what I can do with his fingers. I don't want to bend the whole hand. Oops, I just drew when I meant to select. S key to select. So I'm grabbing the knuckles, and what I got to do is, this is a movement we really don't want to botch, but basically what's going to happen is, if you think about it, I'm going to hit the control key, I'm going to try it this way. I'm going to say, okay, they would get a little bit smaller because they're moving away from you, and maybe a little bit that way. Okay, so now what we're going to do is just say, yeah, not bad. Actually, that kind of worked. So, a bit to my surprise, that came out okay. So, all right, so now I'm all over the map on as far as the topics today, but basically I'm kind of going to get back to Dominic's thing about how long it takes to make a film. In practice, what it really is you could think of it as, you spend a month writing the script, you spend a month casting it, you spend a month shooting it, you spend a month editing it, you spend a month adding the post-production and the musical score, and then add a month of miscellaneous, especially because the shooting phase might be actually spread over 2 months, so these months overlap. But at the end of the day, the actual work cycle is pretty much 6 months. And I think that that's probably true with even a fairly high budget you know, Hollywood movie. Probably once, you know, well, I have to be careful. I can't speak to what they do in Hollywood too much, but um, once you add a lot more roles and a lot more people, then you're doubling up on your manpower, and so it doesn't necessarily increase your time. So I think under most circumstances, it's very possible to develop a feature film from start to finish in 6 months. I've certainly done it multiple times. Okay, so now this actually needs to go boop, boop, like that. So let's see if this feels all right. Hit the L key to play. Okay, not bad. All right, so now we're going to do the plastic tool. So let's just hit the X key, create a mesh, boom, and we're going to keep this really simple. When I do the plastic tool, in this case, let me think about this for half a sec. I probably don't need to deal with the arms, but just to be safe, I will. And then normally, I'm going to want to put some extra bones down at the bottom to just keep things from distorting when I don't want them to. So that usually, for something like this, that'll probably do the trick. Let's go to animate. Okay, but shouldn't underestimate animation as a director. I saw movies where the director thinks it's only animation and they've done their storyboard, whereas real life. Shouldn't underestimate animation as a director. Well, okay, yeah, you got to realize too, when I did live action films, I didn't storyboard them, okay? So in this case, you've got the whole show that is in fact storyboarded, right? And so I think if I understand Dominic's point, for most directors, this would be a really smart step. Is like storyboarding your show so that you're planning out your shots in advance. The worst and stupidest and most expensive thing you can ever do is get to the set and then try to figure out what you're going to do. That's like, you can't even describe how dumb that is. You'll wind up taking orders of magnitude more time and expense. And if you adhere to your plan, then the likelihood is pretty high that you're going to just shoot what you need, and you already know in advance how it's going to edit together, pretty much based on the animatics. So in that sense, for live action, animation is an extremely valuable tool if you want to think of an animatic as being basically a form of animation. Okay, so what we're going to do is just like I said, we're gonna go. He's basically going to lean back, and I'm going to give him some time to do it, about like that. And we'll pipe the shadows through the plastic tool here in half a second. All right, not bad, not bad. Hit the L key again. Okay, it's a little too slow. So let's kind of say, let's give him a few frames to settle into the shot. He leans back, and then boom, boom, boom. Okay, I like that. It's got a musical pace to it, sort of bam, bam, bam kind of thing. Go, move, fingers, right? Go, move, fingers, yada, yada, yada. So that's the idea. Okay, so that worked. Now what we need to do is make sure the shadows are included in the plastic tool. So you hit the F3 key and go to the stage schematic, and as you can see here, here's Golic, here's the plastic tool. So the plastic tool is controlling Golic, and what we need to do is take this level, which is his shadows, and pipe them also into the plastic tool. Now you can see it made them go dark. That doesn't matter, it still renders correctly. And then say, okay, this is a cartoon. It's okay if the shadows kind of move with the character on this shot. Okay, so now what I want to do, I see OBS just reconnected, so I don't think you guys missed anything important. All right, so what I'm going to do is look back at my script, and okay, what it says is that Golic signals the prince to come. Okay, yes. So this shot, unfortunately, is literally going to go by in very little time because this is really just a continuation of the previous shot. So basically, boom, it's over. So we're only going to give this shot 3 seconds. Kind of a bummer because we're not knocking out a lot of show here today for the price, but it is what it is. At this point, I'm going to delete the sketch. There's no reason to keep it around. Let's go to the scene cast and kind of clean up our work a bit. Okay, so now before we get any further, let's turn the background back on, which clearly is totally out of whack. And what I think I want to do is scale it up a bit. I'm going to move fast here because I just want to kind of feel things the way they're going to be. Let's go ahead and rotate it as well. Do we want to kind of contrast? I would say, actually, he's going to start out here and he's going to lean back away from it. So I would say probably something like that would be good. Now I'm going to crop that to the camera so I can kind of see what I'm doing. And then, unfortunately, well, actually, that is not horrible right there. That actually feels pretty good. Let me look at the prior shot and see if that's going to create a disconnect. No, I think that's okay, actually. Now, there's a part of me that says I want to see that other. Yeah, I think I like that even better. Except we don't want a tangent. You see that tangent between the lip of the amphitheater and his fingertips? We really don't want that. So we either need to put it here or probably more realistically there. You know, we're kind of looking up still. And based on the other shot, I feel like I want it to angle even more. A little more dramatic. Okay, let's go ahead and cut this into the show. Well, actually with one caveat. I think we need the body highlight effect. We have a blur on the background, so let me just move this up here so you guys can see what the heck's going on. I'm going to leave the blurring of the background relatively the same for this shot. Okay, so what we need is probably two body. Well, do we need two? Let's just find out. Let's go to light, body highlight. Okay, so yeah, I think we do want that really, really harsh. So let's make this 0. Yes, and then this really wants to be about 12, I think. Yeah, there we go. All right, and then I'm going to add a second one. Body highlight, again with the default settings, but this time what we're going to do is invert it. So we're going to make it black, actually, like so. And then we're going to invert it. And then we're going to make it mostly transparent. So let's just kind of dial it in now, like so. That's probably about right. Okay, let's render that and snap it into the show and kind of see what we've got. So, jumping back over to the show. Alright, this is shot number 598. And we're going to go boom, scene number 598. There you are. There you are. It's only 24 frames. Wish I could move faster, but I can't. Curse it all. Properties, disable resample. Okay, so now I want to see. This is going to be kind of an interesting progression here. Blah, blah, blah. Okay, not bad, not bad. I think he needs to actually be in motion when the shot starts. So we'll do that. Okay, and now here's what we're going to do. This is important. We need to kind of go anime here a little bit. So what do I mean by that? I mean, I'm going to take this shot, and at the end of it, I'm going to crop it in. And I'm not even going to think too hard about this because it's really obvious what needs to happen. Both of these shots need to be pushing in, so that we've got this constant drama of that movement, right? In fact, one could argue that this shot would benefit from the somewhat cliched anime effect of going like this. Grab this and then go like that. And we'll just kind of smack that in on Golik's face. Okay, and you'll see here in half a second what's going to happen. Okay, you see that? Okay, so now let's look at it over here. So this is a good example of where you've got two fairly simple shots and we don't really get much color change between them. Okay, but just a little bit of judicious editing work can add a lot to the shot. So there, we're going to allow the movement of the camera to sort of increase the drama, and then look at that effect. As far as I'm concerned, it really works. So if somebody has a different opinion, feel free to speak up. I would say that the zoom in, the push in after the effect is too fast. Okay, it feels a little cheesy. So I'm going to go back here and go to this animation key and not push it in quite as much. So I want that to be a little more gradual, right? So let's just see. Okay, and I'm going to try a different approach, actually. I'm going to try something different. I'm going to delete this key, and I'm going to take this, and actually, I'm going to go ahead and crop this in. Just try to find where it feels good. I just want to play with this one time and see if it's going to... Boom. I actually kind of like that even better. So he wiggles his fingers. And now the thing about it is, I'm going to make one more change. Right here, I'm actually going to move him over even more because I forgot. I do want to have an indication of Vespar's silhouette kind of sliding into frame. So now this is what we have. Bop, bop. Okay, and when he moves his fingers, we're going to see Vespar's head start to move into frame, and then it's going to cut to a close-up of him going like, who, me, kind of thing. Okay? So yeah, I'm thinking that the storytelling is working. All right, so how are we going to do this? Well, the easiest way to do it is just to add a vector level. And we will just do a single frame. It's going to be real simple. Infinite canvas here. Turn that back off. Actually, forget the infinite canvas thing. I don't like that. All right, so what I'm going to do is just going to draw a shape that represents Vespar like so. All right, it just has to be a filled shape. Okay, and then what we'll do is we'll put him in the shot and just use the plastic tool to angle him off and then move him in at the appropriate time. So X key, create a mesh, apply that, no problem. We're going to build a skeleton. It's going to be really simple, just like 3 nodes. Animate, and immediately, let's think about this for a half sec. Frankly, forget what I said. We're not going to use the plastic tool. That's stupid. We don't need to use a plastic tool for this. Let's, by the way, turn on global key. Let's put the center here. Position over here. All right. And now, after he wiggles his fingers, we will see Vespar move into frame, and then I want to use a little bit of rotation like that. So I would bet you that's actually going to cut into the show and look pretty good as is. The question is Vespar going to actually appear in the frame? Oh, okay. So now what that tells me is that the edit needs to go ahead and go to its full length because we need a moment to digest. Yeah, okay, that works. Hope that's making sense for you guys. Okay, so the only problem would be that the color of the silhouette looks a little goofy. So let's lighten him up a little bit And then let's just debate, do we want to push it towards the blue or the red or what? And I would say the blue looks about right. So quick re-render, takes exactly 1 second. And now let's jump back over to the edit and kind of see what's going on. So blah, 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 blah. Da, 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 da. Boop. Yeah, there we go. Now we get Vespa in there. Okay, so we're in business. Now what we need to do is, let's jump away from the edit, back to the show. This shot is done. Okay, so not too bad. We got, if we're keeping score, we got 2.5 seconds of show. Needs blur on it. Are you referring to that? Blur on Vespa. Oh, motion. Okay, yeah, focal blur. Okay, I could see that. I could see that. That's fine. Let's do that. Good idea. Thanks, Tom. Okay, so F3, very, very simple. In fact, probably honestly, the default blur will probably do the trick because it's going to be pretty obnoxious. I think 48 pixels is the typical default, or 45. Okay, so if we look at that, there you go. All right, so let's render that. And again, this is one of the things I like about Tahoma, you know, lately versus Krita, is the rendering is so quick. And I also love the fact that the render settings are baked into the scene itself. So there we go. We got focal blur. I like that because, you know, I like that a lot, Tom. So that's a really good idea. Because you're taken out of the moment by the jump transition to Golic. Really? Okay. Okay. Well, let's okay. Since we're doing it community-wide or wise, let's play with this a bit. I tend to disagree only because I'm kind of also feeling how the music's going to work with it. So there's that element to consider. But if we ditch the smash zoom, which is fine, let's ditch the smash zoom for a moment here. Okay. If we ditch the smash zoom, then maybe just a tiny push would be okay. So then what we would probably do is pull out here and then just push in just a little bit. Okay, so let's try it that way. Okay, I'm good either way, honestly. I'm not married to either approach on this particular shot. So, yeah, I mean, that you could argue that makes smoother continuity. I'll go with that. Like I said, I could go either way with it. I think both of them work, but if I've got an objective third party that's saying, no, actually this works better, then I'm going to take your word for it because it never ceases to... I think that we have to be sufficiently humble to realize that anybody can have a, and not to disparage Maria's input in any way, because it's very good input. But I found a long time ago with movies, it was interesting to me to discover how when you've created something that's pretty crappy, even a child can tell it's not working, right? They can't tell you why. They can't express why it's not working, but they can tell. So right now it appears there's something wacky going on where when I hit with my middle mouse button, maybe if I use my stylus. Okay, yeah, for some reason it wasn't registering the middle click. So that's a good example of things that every once in a while go a little bit stupid with the tablet. Okay, so what we need to do here, this is kind of an interesting moment because this shot is almost an exact duplicate, maybe flipped, of what we saw way back here in the show when Vespar encountered Tianara. So probably that shot actually, yeah, that's the shot. 518. Okay. Let me see what happens in 520. That's interesting. That actually would be kind of interesting and run in reverse if the truth be known. But yeah, we got a few shots here that are kind of using that same pose. But basically, that's the shot I'm looking for. So let's use 518. All right. It's just silly to reinvent the wheel. So we're going to load 518, and we're going to immediately save it as something else. I have to look and see what the actual number is supposed to be. Okay, so step one here. This is kind of interesting. Okay, this is a subscene. Gotcha. Subscene with a little bit of plastic tool. And then this is interesting. This is also a subscene. So this is a good example of how you can break up your work in Tahoma or OpenToonz. Because what we have is we've got a scene that's got his ink and paint, shadow, I think his eyes or eyelids. Let me see. Yeah, different eye poses. And then the lip sync, his mouth, which are a scene that's nested inside of this one where we add the plastic tool. And then to that, we marry that to the background. So it's actually a nested 3 levels deep. Works pretty well. Okay, so step number 1 is that here we can see that there's an animation keyframe. So I think what that was me figuring out how I wanted him positioned in the frame. Let's delete that key. Okay, yeah, there you go. Okay, so I'm going to hit undo because what I'm actually going to do is just, I'm going to flip him. So scale. So go to your horizontal scale and make it negative 100%. Okay? That flips him, and unfortunately that also reveals a little bit of imbalance in the way he was drawn. Oh my gosh, that's actually kind of disturbing. That's actually really bad. I am detecting something that I could not see because apparently I didn't flip it earlier. So those of you who are really picky and want to spank me, you're welcome to. I deserve it because look at his helmet. Look how screwed up his helmet is. That's really bad. I'm sorry, dudes. Sorry. Thanks, Tom. Yes, I'm sorry, guys. I hate when I do that. Okay, my bad. I'm sitting here blabbing, and I didn't even realize I was on the wrong screen. So forgive me, folks. It's not the first time I've ever done it. Hopefully, it'll be the last time I do it, right? Yeah. Okay, so all I did was load up shot number 518 and then flip. So this is what I showed you. Here's the scene with the ink and paint and the shadows. Then one level up, I added the plastic tool, and then one level up from that, I flipped it and married it to the background. Now the problem in this case is the background is wrong, and of course we have the bigger problem of his helmet being screwy. So now we have an interesting choice. Do we try to salvage it at the moment? Or do we just redo the shot? I'm leaning towards redoing the shot, honestly. And just bringing up this into another shot for a color key shot because that's really bugging me. Alright, so how do we do that? Well, step 1 is going to be to explode this. Explode the subscene. And then probably we can leave the, I don't know, let's get rid of the plastic tool. And let's explode this as well. Okay, let's get rid of the background. It's not doing us any good. And so you can see all these pegs. So if we look at our stage schematic, it's a little strange because when you unpack subscenes and you know, explode them, it tends to leave some garbage in the schematic, which is understandable, you know, because it's putting in all these pegs in order to keep the relationship between the levels organized. So now everything's cleaned up now, so it only took like 1 minute to fix. But okay, so before we go any further, let's figure out what scene we're actually on here. I deleted the background because it's the wrong background for this scene, and obviously he's got to be flipped. So Um, hey, Mikhail, thank you for that little plug. It's actually called clerical errors. The reason for that is that it was a play on words. That he's a pastor, like he's a preacher in a church kind of thing. So he's a cleric, but yet the term clerical errors is kind of a common term for, like a bookkeeping mistake or something like that. So it's sort of a double play on words there in the title of the movie. But yeah, if anybody wants to see, if you want to see what can be done in terms of a complete motion picture created for a total budget of $8,000, all of which went to the actors. 100% of the money went to the actors. Okay. That movie, Clerical Errors, is right here on my YouTube channel, and you can see everything about what I'm talking about with filmmaking is in that movie. The script, I wrote the script, I wrote all the music, I did all the editing, directed it, and it's a fun movie. I mean, it's proven to be a crowd pleaser. Like when we showed it in theaters and whatnot, it always got a really positive response. It's a funny, quirky little movie. So anyway, all right. So we are on shot number 599. And by the way, that smash zoom that we used before here that we got rid of, they would actually work here on Vespar. It probably makes perfect sense to do it on Vespar. But now we've got another problem. Let's look at this. Is this really the pose we want? Here he's looking straight ahead. I'm telling you what, I'm actually rethinking this. I think I'm going to cut this to the clipboard and use I'm just going to steal the palette. So I know this is probably a little confusing because I'm moving fast here, but what I'm going to do is get rid of this, and I'm going to hit Control V and paste this in. So the only reason Vespar from the earlier scenes is even here is as a color reference. That's it. Because I like this pose better. It's a slightly different pose, and I don't like the angle for the shot I'm using right now. So let's just redo the darn thing. Okay? So that's that. And what do we do? Okay. Let's tighten up the pencil test. Since we're here and doing it, let's go ahead and just kind of make this. Okay, that's interesting. This is set to 0.4. Painting, if you will. I'm just using that for my pencil test. And all I'm doing is tightening it up. I'm gonna, okay, yeah. So here, this probably should be a little bit cleaner, a little bit tighter. But in this case, we're not really seeing we're literally looking straight at the front of this piece. So, but I think those, the film is it's actually a good plug for the cartoon in the sense that it does illustrate what I'm capable of, okay, in terms of the whole filmmaking process. And boy, that was a fun movie to make. Unfortunately, the guy that starred in it has passed away. He was taken out by pancreatic cancer just a very few short years ago. So that film was shot, I think, in 2015, if I remember correctly. And man, we had fun because so much of the movie, it was literally just Donio and I going out to a location and just scouting locations and shooting. There's so much, honestly. I say this. What am I trying to say? I sound like an arrogant know-it-all if I'm not careful. But again, I've been around this block many times, okay, of filmmaking. I literally have had to learn everything there is to know about making a film because You know, because I did it. I mean, I was under contract with a sort of a second tier cable company, creating essentially made for TV movies, right? And I wound up making 4 films for them. And because they were pretty good, it created other opportunities to create films, you know, for other entities. Um, and so to unpack that movie that's here on my YouTube channel, Clerical Errors, to unpack the process of writing, the process of editing, casting, shooting, cinematography, lighting, oh my gosh. The things that I learned about lighting for someone that wants to be a filmmaker, it would blow their mind, because I found ways to get a complete lighting setup in 30 seconds, whereas in Hollywood it would take them 30 minutes, you know, because I had to, because I was paying, you know, it was only probably like $100 an hour, between $100 and $200 an hour. I was spending, you know, to have the actors standing around waiting, you know, for me to tell them what we're doing. And when you're paying that out of your own pocket, you figure out, hey, it makes sense. Like Dominic, I think it was talking about using an animatic. It makes a lot of sense to plan, you know, plan it out in advance what you're going to do, so that when you get to the set, you know, you're not guessing. You're not. Now, I have had situations where my most successful film, Healed by Grace, which I personally don't point to as my greatest film. It is my most successful film, but I think it's actually my 3rd best film. I would consider Clerical Errors actually be my 2nd best. But anyway, but we had a situation with that movie where we got to a set and we had literally hundreds of dancers there from all the different dance schools around town, because they all wanted to be in a movie, you know. And the movie was portraying a dance competition, right? And so we've got all these different schools there, and we get to the location, which we didn't have the opportunity to spec out in advance. So we get to the location, and everything about the location was completely in reverse to what I pictured in my head. And man, I had to... Oh, thanks, Mikhail. Thanks for correcting that, Mikhail. I appreciate that. But yeah, we literally got to the set, and everything had to be flipped. I'm going to find this just because it's kind of fun. Bear with me for half a second here, people. Okay, yeah, so here's the full movie. And let me just back up here. Yeah. Yeah, so, and again, I actually, even though this movie did do quite well, I don't consider it to be my best picture. But anyway, especially because of the lighting. Like, the lighting is just atrocious. I hate to say that, but okay, so because it was just the right picture at the right time for the right market, and people bought it. I mean, this was back when there were DVDs, right? So, yeah, pretty crazy, and a lot of fun. I mean, it's kind of intense because it's about a 6-month period of creating, you know, a film. It's a big job, right? But okay, so back to Vespar here. Now what we want to do is go ahead and do the ink and paint. What I was saying about the smash zoom is this shot, it would actually make more sense. So if we look at the film edit or the show edit, that smash zoom that we just got rid of here actually kind of makes sense here. So it'd be like, boom. I can actually illustrate that this way. So here's the shot. And then, so this gets back to what Dominic was saying about an animatic. We can test it in advance and see if it's going to work. Boom, boom, boom. Right? And that, I think it works there because it underscores, whoa, who, me, kind of thing, which is totally the attitude we're trying to capture. So I think they're, you know, Maria and Tom, if you guys want to weigh in, do you agree? I think it kind of works for this shot. So it's so cool. I mean, the whole filmmaking thing is definitely very cool. I mean, as I've thought about it recently, I think, you know, man, I would like to go back and make another picture. I mean, I'm fortunate in that if I do make another picture, I know that it will get distributed, you know, worldwide, because my distributing partners have enough confidence in me because I've done it multiple times, you know, that they'll pretty much trust, you know, that whatever I create is going to be worth putting out there, kind of thing, right? So so in that sense, there's always kind of an open door there. But right now it's like, and of course they're enthused about the cartoon too, right? When I think about it, I think, you know, so many people are probably like, oh God, you're so lucky, you know. I want my movie to, you know, how do I get my movie out there? And actually, the truth is, it's not that hard. You can go and you can find distributors very easily, and just call them up. Call them up and talk to them. Talking to them sounds great. What you're doing, just, you know, come back and talk to us when it's done. You know, it'll be great. And that's the right thing for them to say, because for most people, you're not ever going to get it done. Unfortunately, that's the reality of the situation, right? So their attitude, you know, their reserved attitude is completely appropriate. Let's see here. I want to do that. And now we want to do ink and paint. Let's do some ink and paint. Whee! This is fun. It buffered. Sorry about that, guys. OBS performance is better when nothing. Oh, golly, you guys. Jeez, OP. I can't believe I just did that again. Oh, man. I'm surprised anybody's still watching. I swear, I should. It's like if there was a YouTube Hall of Shame for idiots, believe me, I belong in the YouTube Hall of Shame. Because I have done that so stupidly many times. It's just so wrong. I am such a goof. Ugh. Let's slam out this ink here, folks. I'll try to redeem myself now by doing a good job on the ink and paint. Boom. Boom. It's like I look up and it's like, hey there, Dave. You're on the wrong screen, you bonehead. Now, to be fair, I have seen one other YouTuber do the same thing, actually. I can't remember who it was, but I'm sure Darren T's never done that. I'm sure Ed Tadeo's never done that. Nope, only the idiot that's so obsessed with talking about filmmaking winds up being on the wrong freaking screen repeatedly. So, sorry guys. Serious apologies. In case you don't know, you can hit Control Spacebar to rotate the screen. You can also hit Shift Spacebar to zoom. And for certain things, it definitely makes it easier to draw your lines accurately if you just rotate the screen. Yeah, not too bad. Boom. It's actually a lot easier, truth be known. Sometimes I've struggled with doing curves, and actually just rotating the screen makes it kind of easy peasy. So, and in my case, I've got a hotkey Shift-Alt-R that restores. Here's where the smoothing doesn't really help too much. It can be a bit of a distraction. Boom. Okay, that didn't work. That did not work. Okay, N key. Not too bad. Not too bad. I think over here on the other screen, which I'm not going to switch back to, you guys don't need to see the edit. I just need to switch back to this so I can refer to the costuming situation. Boom. And he's basically got this sort of just kind of a wingdinger like that, and then it's sort of got these ribs. It's basically like a leather piece. And then this diadem, I don't believe was present in the earlier shots, but I call it a diadem. I don't know if that's really what it's called, but that's what we'll call it. Okay, now he also had these little, well, in the ancient world, when it came to military costuming, these little things right here, they were known as wingdingers. I don't know if you guys knew that, but they were called wingdingers. And so we call them wingdingers. A lot of people don't realize that that really was a word in ancient, oh gosh, what was the language? Babylonian or something? I don't know. I'm kidding, obviously. All right. Okay, I see what we've got here. So the diadem thing is kind of flopped over top of the... okay, I see what we've got. So actually, this needs to go like that, and then really this kind of flows underneath it. That works. Wingdingers. Yes. As a matter of fact, Maria's correct. That's very interesting. Very interesting that Maria would have known that, because to English is one of those. It's one of those miracles of history, isn't it? I mean, it's just a true miracle of history that you can convert it to English and it still makes perfect sense. Yes. What the heck? Where are the whites of his eyes? I wonder what this is. I say we get rid of the whole raster thing. And we don't need this bright red, so I think we're going to make that the whites of his eyes. Okay. So now, what we're going to do, I want to check one thing here on my symmetry. M key. You know, actually, pretty good. I do not like this, though. Okay. I see a problem. Let's go back to our outlines. And this is where checking your work turns out to be kind of a good thing. This and this ain't working because it's just not enough curvature. And that doesn't really look right either. We need to kind of split the difference between the two as far as I'm concerned. And I don't like that either. This is one of those kind of touchy things. I'll know it when I see it. That's probably about right. Yeah, gosh. This is where somebody's screaming at the screen saying, Dave, why don't you just like use the Bezier curve tool? Okay, let's do it. What the heck? Let's use the let's use the arc actually. So we can go click, click, and then just feel it. Oh, that's easy. Wow. Whoever was screaming that at their screen, kudos to you, because you turned out to be completely correct. So this is an interesting, another interesting aspect of ancient, hello? Ancient military costuming. This part was known as a who's his what's its, which if Maria could help me out. Did you recall the spelling of that one? Who's this what's its? These yeah, ancient military costuming was quite a mixed bag. Now, I have to confess, that now that I have it in there, I don't like it. It could be because of this. I'm going to just do some erasing. Okay, yeah, I mean, that was part of the problem. Interesting, interesting, interesting. I'm feeling like that definitely needs to be a little higher. So, is this the who's is what's its, or is this the who's is what's its? That ain't no. It looks a little stupid. I mean, that's my basic issue with it. His helmet looks stupid. Now, to a degree, is that a good thing? In this case, it probably is. However, this, even though the whose is what's it's in the wrong place, it really does look better. I have multiple screens, Dominic. I have 3. Yeah, there's actually 3 screens. The situation is, here's the tablet, and then here's another screen, and then there's another screen. So there's actually 3 screens. Yeah. So I'm a silly goose. Okay, so again, I'm not buying the who's is what's it's as it is in this. This is actually kind of embarrassing. This is an embarrassing moment here live on YouTube where I've embarrassed myself because I'm not it's like this should be so simple to draw, and yet I feel like I've just completely botched it. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to backpedal here a little bit, and let's just do it this way. Let's get the stupid thing sketched in so it feels right, which that does. That's what I've been trying to do. Okay, let this be a lesson to you people. And by the way, the who's is what's it's, we're going to go ahead and allow that little bit of it to show there. Now that looks right. That looks like what we kind of were trying to do. This maybe could come down a little bit more. Yes, I would say just a little bit more there. Okay. Kind of a chess bishop's peak. Yeah, kind of. Yeah. Like I said, this, here I am, I'm like drawing characters, I'm doing this, I'm doing that, and I can't draw a stupid who's is what's it's or a helmet. Like, what the heck's wrong with you, dude? What planet are you from that you can't even like draw an accurate arc? Well, this, by the way, is where the arc tool is quite nice. I love that. I love it. I really do. The poly arc, of course, is really nice too, which lets you draw a sequence of such arcs. So if you consider yourself really bad at drawing, use multi-arc. So it's click, click, curve, on to the next click, curve, click, curve, and then poof, close the shape if you want to. The poly arc is a very, very useful tool. It was actually a feature of the software that I requested, and I don't know if it got into the software because I requested it. Excuse me, sorry guys. It could be, I don't know, but yeah, come on. Boom, little curvature there. But if you have to draw who's is what's it's, the poly arc tool is a really good way to do it. Now you will notice, by the way, that there is you have the same problem in Krita, by the way, is that when you use the geometry tools, because your brush tool uses pressure, and your arc tools, your geometry tools, basically aren't using pressure. Because of that, the lines tend to turn out a bit thicker. It would be probably good if the software compensated for that, because it's kind of a dumb problem to have. But what it means, and there's really no way to fix it, so I actually have to draw these lines over again. So we'll do it right this time. So let's just go ahead and erase all of this, and we'll just redo it since we have the sketch in there. Okay, so when you use the geometry tool, what you generally want to do, and let me see if we turn the hardness down, if that helps. Let me see what that does. I just don't remember with. Okay, maybe. Let me see. Yep, okay. I would say we want to split the difference. Split the difference, okay. So that, okay, so for our purposes with Tahoma, this probably works pretty well. I would say if you put your hardness at about 50%, let me just see what that looks like. Okay, I'm going to hit enter, and then I'm going to do the same thing with the brush. Yes, okay, so you probably want to, and you see the hardness on the brush is at 0. Let's put it at 50%. Okay, and now you can see the lines are a good bit bolder. So what does that tell you? It tells you that wherever the hardness on your brush is, your geometry tools, you want it to actually be about 50% higher. So there you go, 50% higher. And oops, I'm using the multi-arc, so now watch this. I'm going to go click, click, and then set the arc. Click, set the arc, click, set the arc, and enter. Got it? So you can do as many of those in the row as you want to. Click, click, set the arc, click, set the arc, boom. Now I don't think this is quite as bold as I want, so I'm going to just kind of make that just a little bit harsher. And it's still a bit on the thin side, but slightly too thin's better than slightly too thick in this case, I think. So hit Control Shift F to check my fill. And as you can see, we got a fill issue up there. That fixed that. Okay. So now let's start slamming through here. We don't want to be in freehand mode. The thingamajigs, or I'm sorry, the wingdingers. The wingdingers are yellowish. Now I'm going to go ahead and make these a little more gold. Like, you know, it's kind of like tassel action. Boom, boom. Looks like the helmet is supposed to be pretty much the same color. We'll do the flesh tone and worry about the eyes shortly. That in one little bitty flaw here where frankly that could be just lost in shadow. I would say then I'm going to hit the V key, and it's set to affect areas. So what that means is we can now go like this. It's not going to affect the lines. And then if I want, I can also hit the fill tool. And once I've got it blocked in there with the Smart Raster Paint tool, what OpenToonz calls the paint brush, as distinct from the brush. I know that sounds crazy, but yeah. And I'll clean that up here in half a second. So this is the brush. This is the paint brush. In Tahoma, this is the brush. This is the Smart Raster Paint tool, which is the V key. Okay, so now I'm grabbing the flesh tone and just going back in and cleaning this up a bit. So I actually use the Smart Raster Paint tool kind of a lot, actually. Okay, not too shabby. We probably want to give the dude some shadows. I do sense that his nose situation feels a little out of balance. So I'm going to actually hit the V key again, but this time I'm going to hit lines and areas so I can actually just do a little erasing. And maybe I think not. I think not. Maybe just a tiny hint of the bridge of his nose. Okay, so now let's go ahead and add a vector layer, or level, to use the OpenToonz parlance, and start smacking in some shadow action here. Like that. And then we will, of course, and by the way, I just remembered something. This is still number 518. This is very, very bad. This is very, very bad. Very bad, people. So there's two things going on right now that are horrible. One is that I haven't saved my work in like forever. So File, Save Scene As, $5.99. Maria, where have you been, girl? How come you haven't reminded me to save my work? This is your fault. Let's need more comments or shoulder boards for looking at reference. Yeah. Well, they're not actually known as wingdingers, I have to confess. I just made that up. And Maria kind of played along. So all in good fun, people. All in good fun. But as I say, what I'm going to do now, because we have the colors in this level, I'm going to quite literally delete this level. I'm also going to delete the storyboard because there's no reason to keep it around. I want to basically get this whole scene cleaned up right now. Clean, 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 so that we can then save all. But the only other thing I want to change is the render settings. This is not 518. This is 599. Entschuldigen bitte. 599 JPEG. Everything looks good. I'm not going to render it right now because I don't know what the ultimate length is going to be, but now we can hit save all, and all of our work, well, obviously save all does what you would expect. It saves all. So okay, well, while we're looking super close here, you can see some little flaws in the corner. So what I'm going to do is hit the fill tool, but I'm going to put it in freehand mode so I can clean up those little hiccups. And there's one there too. Come on, baby. Come on. Okay. Now, let's finish our shadows. And I'll look at the comments and see if there's anything dumb I've forgotten again. Hey, Soda Pop. Was simply drawing. I will say that OBS is consistent. When it disconnects and freezes up like it just did, the pause is pretty consistently 10 seconds. Like 250 frames basically, 260 maybe, but okay, so let's just keep smacking these shadows in here. We want to kind of get a little bit under here, catch sort of that lip in the fabric. Right. This is kind of unnecessary because I think it's going to wind up being off screen, but just for simplicity and completeness, we'll kind of put this little indicators in here. The wingdingers, of course, cast a little bit of a shadow. And then we will be using the body highlight effect as well. Now, one thing we could do here, I think, would be, actually, that might actually be what color number 5 was for. Was for like that, for example. Okay, and so having done that, we can also maybe put a little indication of shadow there as well, which just kind of punches it up a bit. Okay, I think we're there. Remember, this is going to be a smash zoom. And I would say, I don't like the helmet being cut off the way it is, so let's do this. Let's go into the schematic. Let's make the shadow a child, because I'm not going to use plastic tool in this scene. So we'll make the shadow a child of the character so that I can then hit the animate tool, and let's just get him down to size. Let's get him inside the frame. Again, I can't emphasize this enough, actually. Again, something I learned in filmmaking is when you're shooting, or again, when you're framing up a shot, err on the side of looser, not tighter. Because you can't loosen it once you're too tight. But you can always crop in a little bit if you shoot a little wider than you think. So take my advice or leave it, but that's my advice. Okay, so here, what we need to do, let's save our work. I need to put his hand in there because he's kind of pointing to himself saying, who, me, kind of thing. And right now we're at 2 hours, so without a doubt, yeah, we're kind of up on noon Eastern Standard Time. So without a doubt, I will be stopping soon. But let's forge ahead. I'm going to hit the B key and boop. Okay. And now that that's in there, I'm going to kind of wing it on this drawing. I'm going to zoom in. Okay, that's too thick. I'm going to hit the undo. I think let's just make it a little bit bolder. Okay, we don't have to draw his, well, you guys can tell what I'm getting at here. In fact, it's kind of funny because that might look pretty bad, and it might not look pretty bad. It's actually hard to tell until it's colored in. So I'm going to quick color it in, and then let's just hit the A key and probably scale it down a little bit. And then, and one thing you probably, it's just good practice. If you're going to be moving things around, set the center point where it needs to be, just because the odds are you're going to wind up wanting to rotate it. Okay. So now what I'm going to do is stretch this down. I'm going to assume once again we're probably dealing with about 3 seconds here. But this will be a little bit slower move. So he's going to go slightly up like this. So my point was thinking about what his elbow would have to do is definitely helpful in this case. Looks like my camera's a little goofed up. Because otherwise it would be easy to have the hand in a position that's actually not capable rotationally of achieving. So we're not going to animate the arm. I don't care about animating the arm in this case. We're going to crop this, and that's really what we're after. So we're going to do the smash zoom, and probably we'll give it 2 frames. Smash zoom, and there it is. Okay, so I'm going to go ahead and render this and cut it into the show so that I can go ahead and crop it and see if it's looking the way I think it's going to. There went OBS again, doing its goofy thing it always does. It looks like we rendered successfully. So now I am going to jump to the other screen. I'm saying that out loud so that I don't forget what I did here. Let's jump to scene number 599, which now has appeared. And let's go with this sequence, which is at 8 frames per second. There it is. Pop it in. Properties, disable resampling. And what the heck is that? Okay, I know what's going on. Sorry about that, guys. This is probably very confusing. Let's jump back here. Okay, so there was I should have just gone like that. Okay, so what's going on here is that if we go to the effects schematic, there's actually a fairly, well, not overly complex effect, but it's a little bit of a complex effect that gives you a glow. That I kind of rolled my own version of a glow effect because I didn't like the one that was baked into Tahoma. Found it to be a little bit unmanageable. So that was a discussion, I don't know, probably 6 weeks ago. But one thing we do want to do here is go to our scene settings, click that, so that this opacity is baked into the render. Okay, so now if we go back to our edit, we should be in better stead at the moment. Okay, yeah. So now we'll take this, just pop this a couple frames downstream, and zoom way in like that. And you know what? I actually wonder if a slight push after that would actually be appropriate. Boop. And I would say not so much, maybe a little bit. Boom. Yeah, that makes more sense, I think. This is the kind of stuff, you know, you just feel it. Actually, what I'm wanting to see is this. I'm going to hit Control, drag, so that we get sort of a double bop here. So boom, boom. Yeah, that's what I was trying to do. Bop. Yeah. So he's kind of having the who me kind of moment. And since this is kind of a smash zoom effect, we probably can make it fairly brisk. Boom, boom. Okay, the only problem being we really should have the smash zoom and pop and then the hand moves, okay? So the timing's a little winky here. Winky, winky, winky. What frame would we be on? I'm switching back, by the way, not letting myself forget to jump back to Tahoma. My sense is that, well, it says right here we're at we're basically 1 second into it. Okay. So let's go here, and what we're going to do is we're going to take this. Okay, let's re-render that, and I bet you that's going to work pretty well in the show. Okay, SodaPop commenting on how Blender apparently, well, he says it sounded like Darth Vader. It sounds to me like probably it sounded like a blender, actually. But, yeah. I always use the bloom node, attach the glow for a brighter glow, and just fix the setting of the node. Hey, Darren. Welcome to the bash, man. So, yeah, the bloom node, you know, I think that's the one that I re-rolled my own version of the bloom node. This was a whole discussion several weeks ago that Darren actually was participating in, and I think Tom as well. But basically, yeah, I rolled my own bloom node because I didn't like the bloom node that was built into OpenToonz/Tahoma. That's just opinion. I felt like my version was more controllable, but, you know. Okay, so now there's one thing that I can see that's a little problematic, which is that, frankly, here, his position should be, we should just take the hand out. Okay, yeah. Re-render that. Okay, so now we just need to deal with the background. So, bop. I'm not terribly thrilled with that. Not totally thrilled with that. Yep, there we go. That's more like what I was talking about. So what are we going to do with the background? Got a couple options here. Option A would be to do nothing at the moment. What I do think I want to do is add a blink, though. So, absolutely. Right here, after the smash zoom, there should be a blink. So I'm going to go ahead and do it in this case as a duplicate. Boom. Watch this. This is going to be so stupidly fast that you're going to go, wow, man, how can you, like, do anything so fast, man? That's what you're going to say. And the answer is, because there's basically nothing to it. So I'm just using the Smart Raster Paint tool to essentially color over the stuff that was there before, which by the way is why it's in lines and areas mode, so it literally covers up everything. Everything be covered up. Alright, now if we go back and look at our shot, and I actually think a more deliberate move on the hand, I hate to like nitpick it to death, but honestly I feel like a slower move would feel better. Let's see. Yeah. Yep. Boom. Okay, I'm not even going to look at it. I know it looks good. We are missing the body highlight effect, though. In this case, seems to me the light would be coming from kind of the upper right, almost straight ahead, but not quite, or straight above. Directly above, let's say. So, let's zip in here. And the column that we are interested in is column 1. And I think in this case, I'm not going to do... I don't think I'm going to do the bright highlight. Actually, I think I'm just going to do the opposite. So if you're going, what the heck are you even talking about, dude? I'll try to make it pretty clear here. So this is going to be inverted, and it's going to be mostly transparent. Okay, yeah. So that's... Let's change this to 10. Yeah, that feels a little better. And this feels a little aggressive. I'm liking that slightly better. Okay, more transparency? I think so. And now I'm starting to rethink it. I'm actually wondering if... let's cut it in the show and take a peek. Boom. It's okay. It's okay. I think we'll leave it that way for the moment. So... Okay. What do we need still? Well, jumping over to our edit and taking great pains to remember that I just switched screens on you. What comes next? Okay, so there's according to the storyboard, we've got a moment with Carliana and Vespigi, which if we go back, that's this shot. There's a lot happening here because what actually took place in the script is that as he's calling Vespar out onto the stage, the rain actually stops. So now we've got Vespar. Okay, so this might be a cheeseball anime style storytelling device that makes my job easier. What am I talking about? Well, when you if you know Vespar is going to come out on stage, and then you cut to the king and the mother of the bride, who are, you know, coalescing, what that does is it buys you not having to necessarily animate him getting from being off stage to here where he's standing next to Golek. So there's two ways of doing the same thing. Obviously you could also draw him moving, and there's ways to make that fairly economical as well, but I'm guessing when I did the storyboard that's probably what I had in mind. So the rain stops, which of course gives Golek pause. It's like, now what do we do? And everybody's a little freaking out. It's like this rain, so they've waited for like 20 years for the freaking rain to start, and now that the rain starts, it stops as soon as it starts. So would be cool if we could control style keying in the function editor. You can. Pretty sure you can. Darren may have an opinion about this, but if I add animation keys, generally by clicking the animation key button here, and add animation keys to animate the color, I'm pretty sure I can get at that data in the function editor. Darren, am I wrong? It may not be as easy to access as one might hope. That's for sure. But if we look at the schematic, I'm guessing. I don't know. That's a great question, though. Oh, there's color. Now, I don't know. That's a great question, though. I'm not sure. Okay, so the question now becomes something I noticed back in the earlier shot. It may look better without the other helmet in front of Vespar. It sets up a complex shape that morphs off to the side. It distracts from really noticing Vespar's move. Let me... So you're looking at this shot. Are you, Tom, is this what you're talking about? You're talking about shot number 598 when he does the little finger thing? Currently it sets up a complex shape that morphs off to the side. I'm not sure what you're talking about there. Here that morphs from the side. Yeah, shot 598. Okay. No, that's not shown in the function editor. You can only work with color keys in the palette. Okay. Thank you, Darren, for weighing in and letting us know that. I didn't know that. I've only had to animate color like twice ever, so I'm not sure what you're talking about here, Tom. Currently, it sets up a complex shape that morphs off to the side. It distracts from really noticing Vespar's move. Oh, I know what you're talking about. I think I know what you're talking about. Are you talking about the doorway? Like, cause actually, what I'm seeing is that this doorway in the background distracts from basically what we're trying to do storytelling-wise with the helmet being in the foreground. And there's really no reason for that doorway to be in there. Is that what you're talking about? That distraction right there? Oh, you are. Okay, so I think you are, and you're... Yeah, okay. Well, since Tom has been kind enough to point out this little distraction, and I think he is correct, it just goes to show how when you got so many things that you're juggling, honestly, it's probably the hardest thing about doing it all yourself, is that it's really easy to miss stuff that someone else looks at it and immediately notices, right? Something that you've done that's stupid, and it's kind of sad because you can like really do nice work, but then there's one dumb mistake right in the middle of it that kind of wrecks it, you know. I've seen that happen. So anyway, well, let's do this. Let's just deal with this right now. Let's go back to 598. And what we would have to do here is we would really basically say, okay, let's probably, I'm sorry, I want to hit the animate tool. Really what we probably want is we'll split the difference on the, we don't want a tangent here and we don't want a tangent here. So this is probably about right. That probably feels about right. Let's just render that and cut it back into the show. Again, one of the advantages you have with Tahoma versus, say, Krita is that I don't have to remind Tahoma of what my render settings are or anything like that. It's baked into my shot. So it's very quick and easy, what you just saw, you know, to fix something and then just go back and so now let's watch it and see if Tom was correct. So now we've gotten rid of the doorway on the left. Boop. Yeah, totally agree. Excellent. Good call. As Maria said, good call, Tom. Thank you. And that is honestly really a good example of where I appreciate your you know, you guys having your eyes on what I'm doing. Is that's a really small change that is actually a pretty big change. You know, that is a small change in the shot that's a fairly substantial improvement. So, yeah. Having those extra set of eyes definitely can be useful. So, okay. So I think with that, I don't really think I want to go ahead and do the background. I think I'm going to go ahead and bail. We're well past 2 hours, and I think I'm ready for to pause the proceedings for this morning. So we're going to have to add a background to this guy. I'll reiterate kind of some of the things I said at the beginning. My plan this week for the show is to reconvene with my distributor. We kind of reviewed the state of the program here the other day. We're going to reconvene, talk about how they're going to be able to help out and support a crowdfunding effort. And I've basically got an Indiegogo campaign dialed in and ready to go that's probably going to get turned loose in about a week. And at that point, anything you guys can do as far as maybe just tell your friends or get the word out or whatever. If you think this is something that people might want to support, anything you guys can do to help would be great. I've gone for well over a year here on YouTube live streaming animation, where I have made it a point not to ask for money, or, and I'm not doing any of the ancillary things, which are perfectly good things. Like Darren has a course that he sells, which is a good course. But I've really avoided doing all that stuff. But we're at the point where it's like, okay, the show is real. We're getting close to 2 episodes being ready to go ahead and get the soundtrack on it and think about the release schedule and whatnot. So at this point, an Indiegogo campaign seems appropriate, and we will probably be running it for 2 months officially. But then what'll happen is that it's going to be the type of campaign that runs, basically it's a perpetual campaign, so that as the show unfolds and hopefully begins to actually continue for 4 years of cranking out episodes, that people will obviously be able to support it as it goes. So Dominic asks a question that people often ask, which is like voices. What about sound and voice in your show? If you look up 4 comments from your question, you'll see a comment by Maria Torres. Well, Maria sent me an MP3 a couple months ago of some voice work, and she is actually being considered as one of the voices for the slave girl Fala.
I know that myself. I am absolutely going to be the voice of Asher.
And I may in fact be the voice of Golok as well. The likelihood is that I'll probably be doing multiple voices because I've done lots of voice acting. And with my filmmaking work, I know lots of people who are, have good voices. And so it's not it hasn't been cast, so it's not decided. But, that's just something that'll unfold. And so that's the plan. The plan is that we will do a casting call, and then we'll go from there. So anyway, if that is it, I think I will say thank you guys for being here, and as usual, there will be more later.